How's your congregation going? Are you weary from watching the years go by and your church attendance in permanent decline? Is the only upward trend of your congregation the age of your members? Has your congregation got to the point that it's even a struggle to get lay preachers to lead your worship? Then you and your congregation may just be ready to let go of the past and embrace the future. Or as it says in Isaiah 43 verse 19, I'm about to do a new thing. Now it springs forth. Do you not perceive it? I'll make a way in the wilderness, rivers in the desert. I've been part of Project Reconnect for 15 years, and time and again congregations using this resource have experienced a new thing. Yet it constantly perplexes me that most congregations refuse to use Project Reconnect until everything else has failed, until they are at the point of pure desperation. Then I guess not many people have been as privileged as I to see how using Project Reconnect has often breathed new life into even the smallest congregation. Project Reconnect is now an initiative of the Hunter Presbytery of the Uniting Church in Australia. The transformation witnessed in congregations using Project Reconnect arises out of the underlying values: participation, conversation and self-determination, along with the extravagant goals of reconnecting with God, reconnecting with each other and reconnecting with the world in mission. To support those values in your congregation, we create a DVD containing a youth message, a sermon, some discussion starters and video songs. Simple enough. I've observed that this simple resource time and again brings renewal into congregations. Project Reconnect invites all members of the congregation to become active participants in their worship every Sunday. That intention is achieved very simply. Typically, there's no one leader. All worshippers are encouraged to contribute in some way. It might be reading a prayer, or taking up the offering, leading the discussion, or controlling the DVD player. Just like other worship, there's praying, singing, scripture reading and a sermon. And one bit that I don't see happens so often in worship, there's discussion following the message, as the congregation responds to 4 discussion starters. The 4 discussion starters, or simply questions, always follow a particular formula. The first question on the DVD invites worshippers to share something that caught their attention in the message, their take-home message for the day. You could say that it was like doing the spiritual practice of Lectio Divina. That is, what is God saying to me in particular today? Of course, it takes a while for people to get used to this, but after a while, people come to church ready and expecting to hear and discern God speaking to them, and enthusiastic to share in their worship group what that take-home message is. The second question on the DVD invites each member of the congregation to tell a story from their life, which in some ways connects with the theme or message. This question does the job of what I call reframing our lives. That is, mostly we experience life as if we are at the centre of our story, and that's about it. But every Sunday, members of those congregations are invited to remember their lives as not their own story, but God's story lived through them. You could say that this is like the spiritual practice called examine. I love experiencing over the weeks and years people growing in their awareness that they have a spiritual story to tell. And often people have just needed the encouragement from the congregation to have a go, to make this life-giving discovery. My favourite memory is sitting in worship in Condobolin. The question that day invited them to recall a time of experiencing the power of God in their lives. An elderly woman described an experience of being an internal refugee in Germany. She was walking along a road with her family and many others, as Russian planes would come and strafe the road, and the only refuge being the table drain on either side of the road. and her incredible sense of God's hand of protection over her and her family. We all shed tears listening. I asked her when before she had told that story to her church family. Now, in her late age, she told us she had never told that story ever before. We all had a palpable experience of God in her telling that day. Another fellow said that he got to know members of his congregation and their faith stories more in the 2 years of Project Reconnect than in 20 years of worshipping with those same people in the past. He also said that he discovered that he has his own spiritual story. Further, that people told him how much they appreciated his stories. And he said that he now tells his stories outside church too. Can you already begin to imagine the transformation that takes place in congregations doing this on a regular basis? Sure, it takes a while for people to get into the swing of it, but after a while, it's like the old memory cells kick in and stories get told as if they were just yesterday. The third question that gets discussed each Sunday in relation to the message invites worshippers to describe how they, as a congregation, encourage each of its members to grow in the aspect of faith and life arising out of the theme for that Sunday. Now, I must say, I've never seen a congregation outside of Project Reconnect regularly discuss this issue. As essential as it is to the congregation and to the vitality of the congregation, this question, you could say, develops the koinonia. That is a Greek word and refers to Christian fellowship or communion with God and with fellow Christians. So each Sunday, worshippers remind each other of the purpose of helping each other grow in faith, in love and in mission. And they discuss how they are doing this or how they could do this. And after a while, I often hear people say that it is participating in Project Reconnect that is central in helping each other grow, because they support each other in the listening and telling of their stories. I watch people become more aware of their purpose as a congregation, supporting each other in worship, faith formation, life and mission. The fourth discussion starter is about mission. It could go in two different directions. The question might ask the worshippers how they observe God's activity in the world in terms of the theme of the day. Alternatively, the question might invite the congregation to reflect on how the wider church and their own congregation does or could realise the purposes of God according to the theme of day into the world. Over many weeks and months, pressing hard against this question, it is amazing to observe worshippers develop in their own ability to think missionally. I remember one congregation realised they had become the only organisation, apart from the local rural fire service brigade, to meet as a gathering of people in their local district. And they decided to organise a Christmas event for their community, applied for funding to support their venue and their venture, and locals gathered, getting to know each other as members of that community. I've watched congregations transform from anxious, dependent, passive consumers, reliant on external lay or clergy leaders, to confident, independent, proactive witnesses to the activity of God in their midst. I remember back before Project Reconnect began, a member of a small remote congregation followed me out of the church after I finished leading worship. She asked me sheepishly, "You're not going to close us down, are you?" And I remember after 4 years later, a minister turned up to that same congregation to lead a baptism. The minister turned up expecting to lead the whole service. That same sheepish woman announced to the minister, "Oh no, we only need you to do the baptism. We'll look after the rest of the service." Perhaps you are a congregation that has run out of options, and so you're desperate you'll give anything a go. Or perhaps you're a congregation that is strong but smart enough to try something transformational, so you will get stronger. Either way, if you'd like to know more about Project Reconnect, try out this website, send us an email, or give us a call. We'll be delighted to tell you many more wonderful things about Project Reconnect and the stories that have emerged from congregations who use it.